Hey, I'm Dukes on Twitch. If you want to support the channel and greensunzenith.com, you can find my Patreon, merch store, and singles store where you can buy singles through TCG Player or Card Hoarder in the video description. If you want to get in contact, you can also find all that info in the description below for things like donation deck lists or just wanting to reach out. Alright, let's get right into it. Hey team, welcome back to Dukes on Twitch. Back today with a pretty special list. Over the weekend we had the Green Sun Summit, but there was a bigger event on, which was Eternal Weekend Asia. And for a quick rundown, if no one knows what Eternal Weekend is, it is typically an annual event where they'll have an Eternal Weekend in Asia, Europe, and the US, and it will have a pretty large, if not the biggest, vintage and legacy events of the year. They have a Eternal Weekend champion, and there's been a few players who have been able to champion both events, which is pretty crazy, either by winning and then top 8ing, or being a back-to-back winner, which I believe Roland Chang was, which is very cool. What we have here is a list from, and I hope I get the name right, Yuuji Ida, who top 16'd the Legacy Eternal Weekend event with Abzan Maverick. This list is pretty sweet. I'm going to play the exact 75. I'm not going to change a thing and how it performs, but I think it's worth noting some of the differences that you might see in this list compared to other lists online. We have the basic swamp, we have 24 lands, we have no Gaia's Cradle, we have the full playset of Orcish Bowmasters, we have a Scavenging Ooze instead of the more sort of recently tested Keen-Eye Curator, we have Barrowgoyf and Wight of the Reliquary, which I think are both pretty great cards for Maverick, but haven't really been tested as much. I wouldn't call them staples just yet. And then 3 mana deck Abrupt Decay, which is pretty huge. I think that's a big sign of the respect for cards like Psychic Frog. I think the Swamp is probably respect for Wasteland, and potentially even more so Blood Moon Effects, which was a pretty great read. I'm not going to spoil who took out the event or what the other top 16 decks were for anyone who might have not been able to catch it on the weekend and wanted to wait for this weekend to catch up on everything. But it's great to know that, hey, a Maverick deck made into the top 16, which was pretty unexpected, but here we are, which is really nice. The one thing with the mana base as well is that there are 12 turn 1 green sources. That doesn't count once upon a time math, but we'll see how this goes, and hopefully it does online. Hopefully it does well online as well, because the sideboard I think is pretty well suited for online. We have Surgical Extraction, we have Thoughtseize for interaction, Plague Engineer I really like, especially against Eldrazi to stop the tokens against any kind of Springheart decks or Nadu decks. Teague I think is a pretty relevant Green Sun's target at the moment as well, potentially even more so than Collector Ouphe. We then have Chokes, which we really enjoy against the blue decks, and Force of Vigor to finish it out and just have a little bit more against the lands decks, the mono red sort of prison decks, the Grim Monolith decks that are running around. So pretty happy all in all with how this deck is going to look, hopefully, online. So that's the spiel. A huge congratulations to Yuuji. That is a pretty amazing accomplishment. I believe it was an 8-2 finish. I could be wrong there. If you want to find all the deck lists, I will link the actual Melee list in the YouTube description, so you have access to that. But of course, you can also find the deck list in the video description or in the Cardboard Live functionality right now on Twitch. Right, let's get into a Legacy League. Play points, Abzan Maverick, nice. Very cool. It's a little bit of a shame that there isn't coverage of Eternal Weekend Asia. That would have been pretty sweet to see, because yeah, some really cool events out, really cool decks out of the event, and it's just nice to get Eternal Weekend coverage as well. The crop rotations, which were the promo this year for I believe either top 8 or top 24, look really cool, and maybe one day might get my hands on one, but probably not. I would assume they're already going for a pretty price. A huge thank you to all of those who tuned in for the Green Suns Summit as well. A big thank you to Harry, Jono, Achilles, Newton, Mapson, Tony, and Mark. Really nice to get those leagues in. Obviously they're going up on YouTube at the moment, so about every 2 days I'll release a new one with this in the mix as well. I would assume with this deck, you would want to play against Frog. You do want to have a little bit against their Animate Dead or Reanimate plan. So potentially more endurances, but all in all, I think having the Swamp as well is kind of nice to not being able to get Wastelanded off black mana. It's pretty great when you have the four Orcish Bowmasters as well. So unfortunately here no green source, which is pretty big. You could go turn 1 Bojuka Bog for turn 2 Bowmaster, but I really don't like having nothing here. So not being able to cast that spell is pretty happy to mulligan this. Again, no turn 1 source, which is pretty rough. It really comes down to, do we want to go to a 5? And I think we do. We do have like Lush into Dork into Dork, but if that's how we're going to open up the first 3 turns of our match, I don't think we're going to be in a great position. 1 Wasteland as well really sets his hand behind, so I think I'd rather find a 5 that has a bit more of a plan. Wow, still no green source. Maybe I shouldn't have mentioned that this deck only has the 12 sources. I usually aim for around 14, but no Once Upon a Times either. That's very interesting. We are going to keep this. And I honestly think we're just going to bottom the 2 Nobles and go with Plains Pass. I don't really want to get Wastelanded. I would like to hit my land drops. But yeah, definitely a tough opener. But on the right deck, it's not the worst. Okay. So this is going to be a great deck for Force of Vigor. We're also going to look at Thoughtseize and Gadok Teague. Doorkeeper Thrall is also pretty interesting because it does stop the One Ring's ETB of you get protection. So I think here, if we draw a fetch land, we'll just go for Bayou into Orcish Bowmasters. I think putting some pressure on the ring is better than going after the Ancient Tomb with the Wasteland. Okay. I think in this case, we're kind of just set on hitting the Ancient Tomb. But definitely not a great position. Okay. They can, of course, untap the Monolith here, which is pretty good. A fetch land off the top is still pretty good because it allows Bayou into Bowmaster into Green Suns for Collector Ouphe, so not all is lost, but you can definitely tell how any sort of slow start for Maverick against this sort of deck can be pretty brutal. Okay. So now we actually have some things to think about. We could just hope that Collector Ouphe does enough, or we could Green Suns this turn for Birds of Paradise or Ignoble Hierarch to get black mana on board. I honestly don't mind just trying to maybe hold up Swords this turn if it's relevant, and next turn going for Collector Ouphe, hoping they don't have a main deck answer. But I would assume this deck might be playing Colligan's Command, so we'll see how that goes. Hey Sarah, hope you're well. Okay. The ring is obviously a nice clock as well, but a replacement ring from them also just resets everything. Okay. You can tell as well how important it was to hit that land off the top and get that Bowmaster into play, because the amount of cards they draw with the keys and the rings is, yeah, next level. Ooh. Okay. So sadly, there was actually no way you get to kill the Metamorph with Swords Plowshares before it becomes a copy of the ring. But we have a plan, which is good. If we turn this off as well, they can't make a construct of this Saga, as they will only have this mana, I believe. Unless they have something like a main deck Dismember, and then use potentially their... No, yeah, I think even then it's tough. I think even Dismember doesn't work. Okay, a little slow, but I will get it into play this turn, because if we draw Wasteland next turn, we want to have Wasteland plus the black fur Bowmaster. There is Collector Ouphe. And now we can kind of just 6. Still float the mana. This is where it's really important to have a Collector Ouphe or Galactic style card in the deck, because it does allow you to have some game against these decks, especially on a mulligan. This feels like a Kozilek's command, getting rid of the Collector Ouphe. Which is, yeah, another really solid printing in MH3. I think probably one of the most underrated, in that it gives the decks that it really wants to play against. That gives these sort of decks a main deckable removal spell that also just works towards their plan as well, instead of running something like Dismember, which might just be, you know, quite a dead card in some matchups. Engine's definitely going to be game there. I don't think we have a way to get through the engines. We love the Forces and the Teague. I do think about the Thralls. I do think about the Thoughtseizers as well. The Endurances I could see coming out, because Kozilek's command exiles, which means we can't Endurance back Collector Ouphe from our graveyard into play. So pretty happy to go down on the Endurances. Swords to Plowshares most likely as well. I don't mind the Mana Accelerants, because it means turn 1 Mana Accelerant, turn 2 hit them with like turn 2 Teague or turn 2 Collector Ouphe. The Grist is good in case they have a Khan. Do like the Onces. Ooze is probably irrelevant. They might run something like Crucible, but think we're fine with that. I don't really want to bottom the Bog, just because it is a black source. Doorkeeper Thrall does turn off the Bowmasters. What does it currently hit? I don't know if it hits Phyrexian Metamorph. Maybe I just won't go with the Doorkeepers here. It does hit the ring, but I feel like with Teague and Ouphe, we do have other ways to hit the ring. Like Maze of Ith, I don't mind because of the constructs. It also allows us to attack with things like Knight and then hold it back. So I think we'll go with something like this. Okay. A pretty slow hand. Like it's turn 1 probably Surveil into turn 2 Abrupt Decay into Wasteland, which isn't fantastic. I think I'd really like a plan to either have turn 1 Thoughtseize or a quick way to Green Suns for Collector Ouphe. Okay. This is the Thoughtseize, but it's like pretty much a mulligan already with the Maze and an extra land. Like 3 lands is probably all you need, so question is there a better 5? And I am on the side of yes. No green mana, which is really unfortunate. But it is the price we pay. I think in that case it's just, yeah, trying to find something here. Keep this, bottom Knight, bottom an Orc, bottom the Green Suns. Oof. I guess it's Lush, and we try to find another land, like a fetch land. Swamp isn't the worst. It allows us to cast the Bowmasters. It doesn't allow us to cast the Teague, but I think that's okay. One thing to note with Teague is that obviously once you have Teague in play, you can't Green Suns again, but in a matchup like this, you also can't Force of Vigor. One way you can is you can return it with Karakas, but otherwise it's a little bit tough. So Urza's Workshop is Metalcraft, add colorless for each Urza's land you control. Pretty cool. So happy to play the Bowmaster. Obviously it would have been nice to get the Teague down beforehand. But here we are. We can hit our own Orc here, and it will grow before the damage occurs, which is nice. Okay. Teague here is pretty nice. It stops the One Ring, it stops Khan, it stops Kolaghan's Command. A lot of the payoff cards, which is nice. Dismember is something to think about. Sometimes Spatial Contortion, I believe it's called. But Potentially, yeah, here's the... Okay. Interesting, they go after the Orcish. Which we do have a playset of. Gadok is just the one of. Which obviously they don't know, but that's pretty great for us. That is definitely a card I didn't think of, but probably should have been aware of in this sort of match, or in this sort of deck. We do have Abrupt Decays for it, but obviously no Swords to Plowshares left. Potentially if we saw this as well, Plague Engineer is worth it because it does hit the Eldrazi. Yeah. Tough. Definitely a matchup where, yeah, you want to keep solid 7s, and we just didn't really find the interaction we wanted early on. Yeah, in paper, or at least for the version of Green White I've been playing multiple, I think up to 3 Force of Vigors in the sideboard, which have really helped against that sort of deck, because it is a case in this matchup where you just have to race them, and obviously there we don't really have that big of a race, as a lot of the ways that we win the game in the early game is through disruptive creatures, which are typically pretty small. Hey Money, welcome. Either, no preference. All right. Okay. Could be a little bit odd with these two being pretty specific about the matchups that they're good in, but pretty happy to keep this and see how it plays out. I'm not too afraid of getting Wastelanded here, which is nice. So we are just going to ramp into a Dryad Arbor. Pretty sure I'm going to do off the Bayou, because it allows us to cast the Wight of the Reliquary next turn, and then potentially Wasteland on the same turn. Okay. It's probably going to be the Collector Ouphe here. It doesn't do a whole lot. Okay. I think at this stage, I could play the Maze, but I think we really want to try to find a Swords to Plowshares, probably off a Lush Portico here. Happy to get rid of the swamp. Doesn't do enough. Okay. Well, that's a start. Playing the maze doesn't do a whole lot. So I think we start with the swords. Yeah. Tricky. I don't mind the Thoughtseizers on the play just because of that scenario. The choke's interesting as well, but I find a lot of the time that it's have a creature on board that it's quite awkward to play the choke. Decays I do like. Surgicals are kind of just needed. The Ouphe can come out. Liberator. I would much rather try to hit hit the graveyard before something comes into play. Pretty tough one. Like, Knights are okay. The Wights are interesting. Just because they're 2 mana. I could see going down on 2 Knights. Having the Wights, having the Barrows. So like a pretty good mid-range plan. Could just be like a Mana Dork. A Mana Dork's nice because it kind of allows you to play around days if you want to from turn 1. Yeah. I might just shave a Once Upon a Time. Okay. Happy to keep this. Probably lead on Bayou into Thoughtseize. Just to really make sure we have a good grasp of what they kept a hand for. Okay. So the Entomb is pretty covered. I think right now it's the Frog that we don't have a great plan against. It's Frog. The Entomb we have Surgical. If the bird gets Fatal Push, we don't really mind. They might as well if they Wasteland us and then try to hit the bird. So I think it is just Frog here. If I really wanted to, you could Surgical it, but that's not really where we want to be. It's Wasteland. Okay. Interesting, they go for holding up Brainstorm, which is quite nice if we hit Bowmaster here. Another Thoughtseize. I don't mind Thoughtseize here. The small issue that I have with Birds of Paradise is that it doesn't attack, which does definitely come up a lot. Ooh. Ooh. So what we could do here is take the Entomb and then Surgical the Psychic Frogs from their hand, which is pretty nice because it takes the Frog and 2 Frogs from their hand, which I think is worth it. I could pay the life there, but probably should, to be fair. That's just right. How did they board? A Voidwalker, potentially a second Burrower. You don't often get that sort of value off a Surgical, but that's quite nice. It does also shuffle their deck, which is pretty sweet. But yeah, I do like my Mana Dorks that can attack, and obviously Bird can't. But the flexibility of its mana is also, you know, second to none. It's also a blocker in the air sometimes if you need that. So they had It must be Scalding Tarn and Borrower and top card. I think because of that, we're pretty happy to get the plains here. And they're just Green Suns for Grist. If we play the Knight, they just bounce with the Borrower, which isn't great, but I feel like the Grist gets into play and also makes it a little bit hard for them to interact. Okay. Take up Grist. Get to attack with the insect. Interesting. Okay. They obviously just felt they couldn't get around the Grist, which is quite nice. That was pretty nice. I think we're just staying the same. I don't think we're changing anything. Mana. Hey Dom, welcome. Pretty easy mulligan. Just can't cast what we want. I don't mind this. I think we keep and bottom the Dryad Arbor. A little bit greedy, but very removal heavy, which is kind of nice. I think here it's just a case of Savannah to turn on swords. This list comes from Eternal Weekend, from a player who was able to top 16 with Maverick, so this is the exact 75. I really hope this is a frog. Okay. Start with swords. And then I'm actually happy to Wasteland them. I don't think the Wasteland's doing much for us. And thankfully with the island, they can't say Entomb and Reanimate in the same turn. This is fine. That's still no shuffle for them. Okay. Not too unhappy with that. This is Green Sun's most likely just for Bird. This is actually a situation where Birds of Paradise is good because it turns on all colors. Which means we can swords, we can decay. We could swords, we could decay. Okay. Animate Dead is still a relatively good target for the Abrupt Decay, so... That's quite good. No value, which is good for us, but really need to... A little bit unfortunate with our mana because we can't Swords and Decay next turn. I think here... The Wasteland is interesting. Yeah, I don't mind going after their mana. The Decay is going to be uncounterable, and the Swords is covered by Daze thanks to the Forest just staying in play, so I think this is fine. Oof. Yikes. Oh no. I meant to click on the Abrupt Decay there. We can try. That's just another challenge for us. Pretty happy just to block here. Yeah. Tough. Can we afford to Thoughtseize? Kinda have to. Oof. Yeah, sadly just a little bit too powerful. And yeah, our mana these first two games just hasn't really come together. Tough. Yeah, it wasn't coming. Really tough. Yeah, good luck at Eternal Weekend in Europe. That'll be sweet. Should be really good numbers as well, I assume. Alright, on the play, which is nice. Okay. I think here we're just going to Green Suns for Dryad Arbor. Have a turn 2 Bowmaster around Daze. And just put these two white cards aside until we find white mana. But yeah, to be fair, like 24 lands, 3 Once Upon a Times, not that different to many other decks. And the basic swamp is kind of Cradle, and in the places where we've had the swamp and not a white source, we would have had the Cradle anyway, so yeah, just a little bit unfortunate. That's all you can really say. But I think I would like to see more turn 1 green sources. I think 12 with the 3 onces, I'll probably move up to 13, if not 14. I believe Newton's number is 14. Opponent's gone to 4 cards, which if they're a combo deck that relies on the graveyard, having the endurance here is quite nice. You just finished 20th at Eternal Week in Japan. Very, very good. That's a fantastic finish that you should be very proud of. What did you play? Ooh, nice. This is going to be a deck that plays Dark Depths and most likely Yavimaya. So you can cast for 2 mana, being the green of Yavimaya and the green of Depths, a Lumbering Mega Sloth, which is pretty sweet. Okay. I think in this matchup, I'm more happy to go for white mana to have swords up. So let's go for Green Suns for Noble. And then we get the free attack in as well. Red Green Eldrazi, very cool. I feel like Eldrazi is a great choice because it's not only a very powerful deck in Legacy right now, but games can be very quick, which gives you a bit more time off the tables. It's happening! I love that. That is very cool. It does come in tapped, but pretty exciting to see it. I think the best draw here is probably Wasteland. That way we can take out the Dark Depths as well. I probably don't want a Green Suns for Grist just because Not of This World is such a big blowout that I'd much rather probably just try to swords it off the table. Okay. And then we do have Green Suns for 2, which is interesting. Which could be Wight of the Reliquary. I think that's worth it because if they do have Dark Depths, we probably want to put in the Endurance to block, which then we can use the Endurance to go and get Karakas with the Wight. This is the first appearance, I believe. Okay. So make it now. Plays around Wasteland, really smart. There's nothing great to grab here. Obviously, this is indestructible, so Grist does nothing. I think here, sadly, it's just a pass and hope they don't have crop or step. Cast the Endurance like this to actually try to hold up a Source to Plowshares. I will target myself because we do want that sword back in the deck. But now they have crop. This list does not play Talon. Nice. For this matchup, I don't mind the Surgicals. Surgical a lot better against depths because it also turns off the slots. I don't mind the Thought Seizers on the play either. Maybe the Force of Vigors, but we do have the Abrupt Decays for things like Pithy Needles, so I think I'd rather have those. We do have Maze, but the land off the Wight comes in tapped. That's the only thing. So no access to Maze or Karakas in that situation where we died of the 2020. I think the Bowmasters can go. Probably the Collector Ouphe. Fleshbreakers. I had no idea they're playing Fleshbreakers. That's just, yeah, my ignorance on the matchup. Could be the Ooze. I was going to say because we get to go above 21, but I actually like the Barrowgoyfs for that role. We don't know if they are... Yeah, I'm happy with this. A little bit awkward with the Dryad Arbor here, so happy to mulligan. Okay. Keeping. It's probably just a Grist here. And then I'm happy to lead on Thoughtseize. Probably off Bayou here because it allows us to cast the Green Suns to get a Mana Dork. Okay. Happy to take the crop rotation here, and then we can make our Wasteland a little bit better and also kind of know what to play around to some extent. But it is a black version, so if they do play Hex Mage, which I assume they do, we should probably take out... I'll put Plague Engineer in the deck at some point. Okay. Pretty happy here to go for Birds of Paradise. The attacking for light damage doesn't really matter in this matchup. Having a blocker in the air is quite nice. Steely Resolve. That's okay. We do have Abrupt Decay, which is nice. That is hilarious. Okay. Knight's pretty sweet. Get the Goyf in. And then thankfully having, yeah, Abrupt Decay for this and Swords for this covers us for now. Let's Bayou. Attack. Okay. Probably take the Knight. And then here we're just going to hold up the Wasteland, I think. In case they want to like Ghost Quarter it or Besiege it. I guess in that case it's not the worst, but like if they have a Wasteland potentially, they want to Wasteland us. But typically those lists don't play Wasteland because they play Pithing Needle. Okay. Yeah, okay, this is only creatures, so that's all good. This hit is pretty huge because it means that we go above 20 life. I think here I just like the endurance. And then I don't mind going with another Knight, or we could just hold up instant speed stuff. And then pretty much have lethal next turn unless they find a like crop for Bojuka Bog. Because we have 4, 8, 9 in Dryad Arbor, 10 in the fetch, and then 11, 12 in the Wasteland ourselves, or use the Knight. Let's just go with get a Knight into play. Tapping like this means we still have Wasteland open through the Knight and still Abrupt Decay and Swords. Okay. Interesting. Play the Slowth, which comes in tapped. I think what we want to do here is take them off the cradle so that they can't crop rotate in our turn. And then we just know that we have lethal. Okay. Okay. Reformal Wear is pretty cool in the Stoneblade or Stoneforge versions of Mav, potentially like the green-white ones. Very good in D&T as you're able to make extra uses of it through things like Flicker Wisp and Yorion. I don't think we really changed anything. There is a thought of Plague Engineer as just an answer to like Hexmage, but I think we just have some great answers anyway to Dark Depths, and I'm not too afraid of Hexmage. No early removal is pretty tough. We do have Liberator for Steely Resolve. Like our mana's on point, which is a plus, but small little things as well, like we already have the Savannah for the bird, which means that we don't really want to get the Lush Portico off the Windswept Heath because we already have a green-white land, but we do have black mana through birds if that resolves, so... And the Bog over 2 turns. The issue I have with this hand is that typically against depths you lose to the turbo starts, and this doesn't have a great plan versus the turbo starts. Other than hope that they step before we get to block with bird, and then in response to step we just get to Swords to Plowshares. Or, you know, block and then swords or whatever. I think there's a better 6, but it's a tough one. Yeah. Okay. This is a better 6, so we'll keep this. I'm going to bottom the plains because we're just going to go for dual lands here. We're not too afraid of something like Wasteland, which is great. Okay. Probably pretty happy to get Lush off the top. I don't think we're in a position where we want to go, ooh, We will respond to that. The Lush. I don't think we're in a position to... I honestly don't mind Savannah just to know that we're getting our extra land drop that can cast the Grist. I completely lost my train of thought as well, so I apologize for that. Wasteland. Okay. Alright, let's go for Bayou here. Play this Wight. Wight obviously really strong with Grist because next turn we get the token to sack to the Wight to start ramping. We would have. That is now gone. Double Surgical isn't great. I don't want a Surgical Decay either, because they already have, like, they might have other flutes for the Grist as well. But yeah, Surgical a card in the matchup where, like, not great. So getting both without pressure, not great. But we'll see how it all pans out. Okay. I think in this spot, we're pretty happy to hit the crop rotation, just see what the card in their hand is. Because if it's not of this world, it's stage. Okay. Okay, so we need to find an answer pretty ASAP to this Steely Resolve. And there it is. Wow, okay. So we have the Surgical for the other, for depths. We have the Abrupt Decay for the Steely Resolve. And then we have the token to get rid of it. So what we want to do here is attack with the token. Decay the Resolve. Tick down on the insect, getting rid of the Slowth. And then we know that they have Thespian Stage, which I assume based on previous iterations of this situation. Oh, they don't go for it. Huh. I guess because they have the Ghost Quarter, they don't have to play around Wasteland. Tick up the Grist. There goes a knight. Play the Maze. Pass. Alright, so they choose one to keep. Now I'm pretty happy to go after the Dark Depths, just to see what their last card is in hand. It's Once Upon a Time. Swords this. Yeah. Okay, we're on the board, but that deck was sweet. I don't want to take down that deck. That deck was awesome. Just cool to see it. Gotta love some Steely Resolve as well. That's really cool. I also like the name Slowth Depths because it's close to Slow Depths or Slowth Depths. We can work on that. That name is in progress. But yeah, I'd say so far mana has just been a thing. But otherwise, like the Abrupt Decays have felt pretty solid. Obviously there, and against like Psychic Frog, pretty happy with it. Inkmat Nexus, I wonder what this opponent is on. If they are on... if they're on Infect, it's pretty cool. I think we're pretty happy to keep this. Just lead on Bayou, Dryad Arbor for Decay. And Wasteland, turn 2 potentially. Island Ponder, okay. I still think pretty happy. Chose to not use Ponder's ability. Okay. Happy to go for Bayou. And then get Dryad. There was like a little bit of an inkling to go towards basics, seeing Island Ponder, like, you know, main deck back to basics, but don't think that's where we are. Alright. We're probably not in a position where we just want to tap out. But it's interesting. Like, what again if this is blue-black and it's just, you know, end step, entomb, reanimate? It kind of makes me want to Green Suns for Grist. We could just go Windswept here and then go and get Lush Portico, which I don't mind, which I will then hold up the Endurance, which also might be a tell that we're holding up Endurance, which might make our opponent not go for an Entomb line if this is blue-black. Ooh, double island. Triple island. Okay. I don't want to see another land. Hey, past, welcome. I think again here we're happy just to pass within. Maybe okay to attack with the Endurance here. Triple Island is very interesting. Yeah, very true. Abrupt Decay is still okay in certain metas, but yeah, very interesting card. Okay, I think here we're just going to try to get some pressure into play and therefore go for the Endurance. This could be like High Tide. This could also be like a Thoracle deck. I think here we're just going to go for Collector Ouphe, just in case it is a combo deck. I'm also holding up the Bayou for Abrupt Decay, just in case they are like a back to basics deck and we want to have access to black a little bit easier to find green off the top. Luster. Maybe I should have Green Sun first. Makes me think it is a combo deck. But they only have 3 cards. Ah, maybe it's mono blue Naught. Look, I don't mind that either because we have the double decay. Null Drifter is pretty tough here. Surely they have something with the dress down. Wow. It's just draw a card. It doesn't make sense. Okay. I think he would have attacking with the Endurance holding up Bowmaster. I could play the Knight and then tap out with the Orc. I could also get the Orc down now. The Maze doesn't really have a role, so I think we could have attacked with the Dryad Arbor and then end of damage untapped it so that the Maze essentially taps for green. Yeah, okay, let's do that. Let's Bowmaster now. Because I want to play the Bowmaster around days and then play the Knight. Hardcast Force is fine. We do currently have Lethal in play because we can Wasteland ourselves, which is nice. Interesting. Okay. This feels like a pretty good merchant scroll for us if they're going for Brainstorm. I mean, Choke in this matchup is going to be great. Thoughtseize, potentially Surgical if it is a deck like High Tide. Trying to think. Oh, another merchant scroll. And they're tapped out, so they need to have something here. Yeah, sadly just a turn too late. And that by itself is 10. Yeah. Alright. Let's bring in Thoughtseize, let's bring in the Surgicals, and let's bring in the Chokes. Let's take out the Swords, take out the Grist. The Knight we can shave. Probably the Ouphe. There could be a Candelabra deck, but I don't mind keeping in Decays just for back to basics and potentially like Dress Down that I might want to keep up. Could also see a Barrowgoyf going out. Endurance don't think has much of an effect, but you never know. I do like Decay as well, like just gaze have things like Grafdigger's Cage. That can be annoying. I think that's going to be it. Teague is, I think, decent as well. It does hit Time Spiral. And if they're playing it, Mind's Desire. But let's go with this. Okay. This would be a 6 with the Dryad Arbor, and I'd be happy to keep this with the Thoughtseize. We also have access to all basics, which is nice. All right. I wouldn't actually mind just going swamp, forest, plains. They shuffled. Okay. Pretty happy to take the high tide as it turns on surgical. Delta, but no search yet. Okay. And there's a surgical. That's pretty huge. I kind of like just going for Green Suns here because it might force them to double fetch and wipe away, say, Gadok Teague. Or actually what the lock here is, it's Gadok Teague, and then in response to the first fetch, Surgical on High Tide. Because then they can't Force of Will. Ooh. Okay. I guess one thing they could do is dress down and then force. Still no fetches. I think then I'm pretty happy just to try to surgical here at end step. Yeah, that's a pretty tough one for them. That is definitely the hard part about a namesake deck. Doomsday doesn't really have the same issue. And to be fair, I wouldn't say Sneak and Show does either because you have both Show and Tell and Sneak Attack. But High Tide is definitely one of those decks that really relies on the card that the deck is named after. It sadly just runs into a bit of a spot there. All right, let's pull this back to a 3-2. That'd be pretty cool. On the play, which is nice. With a decent hand. All right. A lot of mana, but hopefully we can work with this. I am going to start with Bayou, as it does a few things. It turns on white mana off the birds, which Ignobled wouldn't, and this into Wasteland. I guess it would be the same with the Ignobled, turns on like Bowmaster. Okay. I definitely don't mind that, seeing that we have mana for days. That's pretty sweet. So let's go with show the Scrubland, play the Ignobled. If this is blue-black, there's a little bit of a case to hold up Endurance next turn. Or potentially don't get the option to. Okay. Tamio. Interesting. This is most likely going to be like the blue-black tempo deck. Which Green Sun's here for Grist would be sweet. Another endurance isn't the greatest. There's no great attack here either. Because I do want to respect days. So I think you were just going to pass with the endurance up around days. Interesting. So they know about the endurance in hand. So they must have a removal spell here. I'm pretty happy to get back the Barrow and the Bird, I think. Quick think. Nethergoyf is also, I believe, a card that would play. So I might actually just get rid of theirs. Also for Frog, it's nice that they can't have flying. Okay. I don't mind Wasteland them. And then pass. The open ignobled kind of shows that we have, you know, maybe another endurance around days. Force. Okay. Nice. I think you were happy to get Grist and trade. I want to keep the Windswept Heath so that we have a Lush Portico there. Bowmasters is pretty good. Lush. I wouldn't mind seeing our own Bowmasters. Decay probably isn't where we want to be. I think we really want to get some pressure on the board. And Decay just, you know, it's one more card away from Bowmaster. I mean, a fetch isn't great either, but... I don't think trading like Decay and Grist for the Bowmaster is good enough. I think I'm pretty happy here getting Dryad Arbor and blocking the Orc. Try to find another Green Suns or a Knight. So we'll keep the Orc at bay for a little bit. Okay. We get to pass here and flip the Liberator. Happy to see how they want to attack. It's probably correct to do it in response to the clue so they can't draw, but yeah. Not too much we can do there. On the play, I don't mind the chokes. Thoughtseize is an interesting one. Plague Engineer is also pretty interesting because it does hit the Goyf if they have nothing in their bin, which we can control at times, but not always. Ouphe can come out. The Liberator can most likely come out. This could be it, honestly, just the chokes. Yeah. I don't mind this. If they remove the Dryad Arbor, it's a little bit tricky. That's the only thing. But then be like turn to Ooze. I think we'll try it out. They just won game 1, so this is game 2. So let's go for... I think it's Bayou, because of these two. Okay. If we draw a land here, I kind of like just resetting the board. We don't. I still don't mind just resetting the board. You could say that Wasteland is more important for us, but we'll see how this plays out. It does keep them off, like, Orcish Bowmaster and go for the throat for one more turn, which is nice. I think it's tough not Wastelanding and getting Tamiyo there. But they don't have a threat at the moment, which is nice. Interesting. Force is fine. The other option there is once for a land, but I think just trying to get threats in play is where we want to be. Bayou. I don't mind playing the Ooze. If they have a removal spell, we have to play around it at some point anyway, so I think just trying to jam threats is pretty good. The upside of Decay as just flexible removal as well means we can stop Grafdigger's Cage as well. Ooh, they are Brainstorm locked here, which is pretty huge. Okay. I don't mind here trying to once for a Wasteland. Okay. Interesting. We're just going to roll this back. I think be a little bit more respectful of Wasteland, but like removal and fetches in the opening hand is pretty awesome for us. Oh, I think it's just a little bit awkward with the mana. Like, we're not casting these knights anytime soon. Yeah, really interesting that spot where they played the Grafdigger's Cage instead of Wastelanding us, because I think hitting our mana, taking us off all our mana, is much more, like, in my opinion, much more important than playing the Grafdigger's Cage, because even if we find a land of Green Suns for 1, we can force it, and then, yeah. And not even that, I guess we wouldn't be able to, and the Dryad Arbor's gone, so. But you never know. You never know what their plan is with their hand, so we will mulligan this. Okay. I think we're going to bottom the tricky one. I want all of it. I think it's the Maze. Yeah. Really can't afford to not have mana that really hits here. I kind of hope it's turn 1 Tamiyo so we can just Karakas it. Okay. That's quite nice. I'm going to expect the Karakas to leave play, but it's fine for us. Okay. This is fine. Here we get to play the fetch land and then try to Swords the Frog, which plays somewhat around Wasteland because I really want this to be a black source. That's the one downside of playing the Karakas, is that it means you can't turn 2 Decay. And no force there is great. Like, I could see a force there because you're probably going to draw a card the following turn anyway, so that the 2 for 1 kind of negates itself, but I understand where they're coming from. Would love to see another island to choke. I haven't seen Days yet, but I believe Tempo plays Days. Yeah, maybe they have another frog. Wow, okay. I don't mind this either because I would love to draw a fetch land here. Okay. It's not the worst. Let's play this, return this, and then pass back with the Bowmaster open. Then potentially choke next turn around Days. Okay. Honestly, now I think it's turned into Decay Frog. And then untap and potentially choke around days. And one card. I mean, it could also just be Karakas Tamiyo, hold up Orc. I don't mind that. Barrowgoyf's interesting. No, I like Respecting Days a little bit. I still think Bowmaster is fine. Maybe a little bit patient, but we'll see how this plays out. I kind of hope they play the Tamiyo and then try to flip it the same turn. Ooh, what's this? 3 mana and paying costs? Oh. Okay. That's pretty good. Now we go for Orc. Get it on the board. Untap. Ooh, Grist is pretty good. I think we're going to try to choke here first. I'd rather this get countered than the Grist. Okay. I think at this point, I'm actually happy to take them off the sea because we still have Daze mana here for these two. And this just stops them from being able to use that in their second main phase. Hey, Mistress. Interesting. End step, just pass. Right. Let's try Grist. I'm not going to attack because if they have a Bowmaster to take out the Grist, I don't want them really dealing with the Bowmaster as well with the token. I do think I probably should get a Grist that's altered with some sort of Australian insects on them. That'd be pretty cool. This feels like another Murktide. Okay. Not the worst. We do have Swords of Plowshares still in the deck. It's alright, let's tick up the Grist. There goes a Bowmaster. Honestly, this turn I don't mind trying to get the Barrowgoyf down. Could also try to like Endurance and then Grist, but I think this is fine. The Wasteland hasn't done too much that we did a few turns ago, and what it would enable this turn is potentially Endurance block and then Orcish Bowmaster the Murktide for the lethal amount. Small thing here as well, if they do have a creature to cast, they could have done the Wasteland in like main phase 1. And then Wasteland at end of attack step. Ooh, Deluge for... that doesn't kill the Barrowgoyf. Oh no. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Wow. Wow. That is unfortunate. Barrowgoyf is not easy sometimes. Interesting. Alright, deck tech. Deck was cool. I will say tonight the mana was a little bit awkward, but I wouldn't say it's because of how the mana is built here. So it is 24 lands, 23 because of the Maze of Ith. It does have the 3 Once Upon a Times, and the swamp is in place of the cradle, which a lot of the time didn't come up because if it's swamp, if it's cradle, it's still not a white source, and a lot of the time it was because it wasn't a white source. There might have been a few times where it wasn't a green source, but nevertheless, yeah, obviously a huge congratulations to this player for coming in such a great finish for Eternal Weekend, especially with, you know, Maverick in 2024. But yeah, potentially they knew a little bit more about the Japanese paper metagame and what to expect in that regard, and was rewarded for it. I don't think this is far off what I would play online. But I'm typically a player who likes to use my graveyard a little bit, so things like either a Ramanap or a Renegade Rallier. I do like Cradle because I think it's important to have some of the more unfair elements of Maverick in your deck to take advantage of those. And this deck, even without things like Questing Beast, you still have Ooze, you still have Endurance or Green Suns to really push all that mana into, which is nice. It also makes Wight of the Reliquary just that little bit better because it is an additional land that's pretty unique that it can find, which is cool. The sideboard I really liked. There wasn't like too many things that came up that I thought, wow, we're not really prepared for this. I think, yeah, generally the list was pretty good, but obviously by changing a few slots, like maybe going down on the Bowmasters, and potentially finding room for the Cradle, you do get closer to the versions that you see a lot more online. So I think that's the only thing, but hey, a huge thank you to all of you for coming in and watching. Really nice to come back to just the solo streams again and just try out this list because I really wanted to see it. As soon as I saw it and saw it did well, I really wanted to sink my teeth in and try it out. So I hope you all enjoyed this just as much. A huge thank you to the new followers tonight. I very much appreciate that. If you do enjoy this content and aren't following the channel, I would definitely consider doing so. I'm going to see who else is streaming. I believe Tagores actually also top 16'd, maybe 10th at Eternal Weekend with, I'm going to say Khan Forge, which is pretty interesting. So yeah, hope you enjoy their channel. I'll be back on probably on Sunday with a new piece, but in the meantime, keep an eye on my YouTube channel because I have all the content from the Green Sun Summit going up over the next few days. So enjoy that, and I'll catch you next time.